time now for today's strategy session. We're digging into President Trump's initial actions in office and the sectors that will be affected by his subsequent policies. Starting off with tariffs, the president warning of 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada as soon as February 1st. So what does this all mean for the markets? We want to bring in Lee Munson. He's the president and chief investment officer of Portfolio Wealth Advisors. Well, Lee, we certainly have seen this reaction play out in the markets. We saw it in futures yesterday. We saw it in the move in the dollar yesterday and here this morning. I'm curious just about this whipsaw action that we certainly have seen, the increasing volatility. Is that something that investors are going to have to get a bit used to here in the second term?
I think you're going to have to. I mean, first, we in the inauguration speech, which was really a State of the Union, we didn't hear anything about tariffs. But then later in the day, they let slip out in a presser that they're going to do this 25% tariff in Canada and Mexico. I don't really think he's going to do it. I think that's a bluff. I mean, put it this way. They don't have a plan on China right now. That isn't the most obvious thing. So I think the idea that we're going to slap on these big, horrible tariffs that are going to push inflation higher, I don't think I buy it. And look at the 30-year Treasury today. If everybody bought it, that 30-year Treasury would be back up to 5%.
Okay, so it sounded like, and just to complete the thought there a moment ago, it sounds like you don't expect them to go into effect.
No, I think that there's going to be something that's going to happen. I think he's just a bully that's using this. That's his tactic, right? We know how he operates. He's going to use this to try to get what he wants. And by putting that timeline, saying February 1st, 25%, how is he going to talk to the automakers of America? How is he going to talk to, what's this going to do to the price of energy? Energy's down today. That doesn't sound like people think that Canada is going to have huge tariffs. What about all the aluminum production that we get from Canada, from that hydroelectric power? So I think we have to, this guy says a lot of stuff, and he's, he negotiates very hard, and he negotiates from a way that, we haven't seen in the last 4 years. And I think investors are going to have to get used to that. But I still think when you look at prices, the prices today reflect a little bit more reality. And that means that I don't think we're going to have runaway inflation. The other thing he didn't say yesterday is he was not real specific about all these tax cuts that he's going to do in terms of, we know what he wants, but he wasn't reiterating all of them from top to bottom.
Well, using 1.0 as a guide, details typically run a little bit scarce early on, as we know. Lee, if it is indeed a bluff, what is your top trade idea? Because that would actually remove a lot of uncertainty then in the form of if there was a tit for tat play out.
Yeah, I think so. The places that I feel more comfortable with, obviously everybody on the street has this idea about how the financials, the banks are going to do well. I don't disagree with that. I think the financials are going to do great this year. I just think a lot of the gains have already sort of occurred from that Trump bump. I think, what are you going to do? You're going to get the capital requirements to go down a little bit. I don't think that's going to be a mover and shaker. So while I think that's going to be a good theme, I think I can make more money other places. I still love defense, this idea that we're going to get out of wars. He's talking about, taking over the Panama Canal. The way you stop wars is peace through strength. We have an old saying out here in Albuquerque called always never. I think you're going to have a golden age of nuclear deterrence start coming back online in this country that we need to rebuild. I think you're going to see hypersonic cruise missile technology. Plus, he wants to go to the moon. I would be long those defense aerospace names. I love TransDigm. Last year, Buffett's team over at Berkshire bought a company in the space called HICO. So I think that's a place you could go. And then obviously cybersecurity. We're not going to put any guardrails on AI. He didn't even talk about AI last night. And so I think that's another big thing.
Yeah, Lee, what do you think about the fact that we didn't really hear a bit more about AI? Yes, he did repeal Biden's executive order when it comes to AI. We're seeing a bit of a bounce here in some of those chip makers. But ultimately, how do you see it affecting investor sentiment and maybe some of the opportunities within that sector?
Well, look at the people behind him at the inauguration. They weren't people who are running the government. They're people who are running AI. I think it's going to be a free-for-all. I don't think there's going to be any guardrails put on that. But here's what investors really want to see. We want to see that use. We want to see something that you can bolt on an app, on something that's going to take an old railroad company or steel company or like a bank where you can just bolt it on and increase productivity where you can measure productivity. Right now, we don't really have that yet. So any application, any company out there that can go to a firm and say, hey, if you bolt this onto your system, we can prove to you that your workers are getting more productive. And that's going to be something that people want to hear. And also, when you're talking about these deportations, listen, GDP is equals to hours worked times productivity. AI is the only thing that's going to jack up productivity right now. So why would Trump be putting guardrails on it right now?
Yeah, looked like about a $1 trillion total net worth combined behind him in that photo a moment ago that we were showing. Lee, thanks so much for taking the time.